On OpeCast, today I have a very special guest, Brendalyn King of Reparations Project 40. She's an entrepreneur and someone that's doing amazing things. And so welcome on to OpeCast.
Thank you. Brendalyn King from Reparations Project 40.
Now, it's an amazing project that you're doing, 3 hours outside of St. Louis, 2 hours away from Kansas City. Before we dive in, you've done a lot of great things, not even just in St. Louis, but in other cities like New York. So let's take a few steps back before we jump into this amazing project you're part of, and let's learn a little bit more about Brendalyn and your St. Louis upbringing.
Sure. So I grew up in North County, Hanley Hills, kind of Hanley and Page area. Went to Ascension St. Paul. It's a school that's closed now, but I was there pretty much most of my elementary school. Graduated and ended up moving to the city where I attended Metro High School, which, you know, #1 school in the state. We'll take that credit.
Back to back.
Give us our credit. So Metro really prepared me for a competitive world. It was a small cohort of students at Metro, but we all had this familial camaraderie, but also some healthy competition. And I think that was certainly the spirit that guided me away from St. Louis. I was kind of the student that had tried everything. I had done everything, not insofar as like the bad pathways, but my attention needed more to do.
Right.
And so New York City was where I found enough for me to pay attention to. So I ended up at Fordham University in the Bronx, go Rams. I was a student shuttle driver there. That was my job, and majored in business management, minored in music, and graduated kind of in the 4 years, but really had a good time in my 20s in New York City.
So do you sing?
No, I can hold a note.
We have some really good mics if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
But I got friends who can do some runs around me that I would never, I wouldn't compete at all. And so I play the piano though, just to give my grandmother a nod. She was a piano teacher here in St. Louis for 35 years, Marjorie Christian, and had a piano recital every year. So kind of just took on the minor to give her some credit for any musical talent.
Can you still play?
I don't practice enough.
Yeah.
I don't practice enough, but it's time. It's time to
get back to it. Do you read the notes like that way?
I always tell people, I'm not the play by ear kind of girl. I am. You can put any piece of music in front of me though, and I can figure my way out around it. Yeah, I love classical music, piano, classical playing. I went to the St. Louis Symphony Music School for my lessons at one point, because when you practice enough, you can get better and better. So at the time, I was pretty good, and it carried me. It was certainly a good hobby of mine.
Yeah, that's when I think it was in 2020. I've always wanted to like learn how to play the piano. And so I would watch those like videos on YouTube and like where they show you specifically which ones to like, which keys to press. And I had that 2 Chainz, like I'm different, like do, like that was like, I thought I was the coolest person, but I haven't played since. So
yeah, awesome. I wasn't the Tupac playing keys, none of that.
So you said business management was the major, minor was in music. What did you do after that?
So I decided on a service learning trip. I ended up in Jamaica for a summer between my junior and senior year. And when I got there, I was put at a home for young girls who had children. They were teen mothers, essentially. But none of them knew how to read, and a lot of them didn't know the alphabet. And so we spent our summer really educating on literacy. And it was really my wake-up call that education was a global problem. It's not just here where I am in some country on a service learning trip, but what does it look like back in New York? So I got back senior year and looked up any school that I could find. Luckily, I had just met someone who said he was opening a school. So I reached out to him and I offered to be a volunteer for their school. And I would commute from the Bronx to Brooklyn. And if anyone knows that commute, it's a crazy commute. And I would go after my classes and help them move into a new building they were moving into in the middle of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And that was really my first taste of Brooklyn as a school volunteer then.
So how far is that?
It took about 2 hours on the train.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Several train transitions. I was 18 years old. And I'm sorry, this is senior year of college. So I'm 21, 22, going up and down New York City, but getting a lot of exposure to not just New Yorkers, but how to be an adult in New York City. And now inside of an industry that I started to learn more about. Everybody in my family's an educator, so I was like not trying to be in education, but when it's in your DNA, I think it just kind of calls you in.
What was life like in the big city?
It was fun. It was fun
because you grew up here, so you went away. Obviously, you're kind of sort of back, right?
Yeah.
And what is that like? I was in New York I think it was like last year, and I loved it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's my heart. I love New York City. I love the spontaneity. After a while, I would start to see people that I knew bumping into them. And that's when I was like, this is my city. Like, I'm here now. I love the subway, all the drama that goes on the subway. I like having to be on my toes, like, kind of keeping your eyes open. And I'm a natural night owl. So New York just really fills my soul in that way that I can leave the house at 10 p.m. and have something to do through the night.
Yeah, it's like I love that every block there's like 6 restaurants, and like like if you want to go do something on a random Tuesday, it's the biggest thing that could hit a Midwest city.
Yeah.
That's what I
really
we'd
say here, like, oh, we're out on a school night, and it's like New York, it's just a Tuesday.
It's just a Tuesday.
So yeah, I miss it in that way, but I never thought I would be back in St. Louis. I started my career as a school office manager and really worked my way up. My organization had a fellowship that was looking for school founders, and it was one of those moments in your young adult career. You're like, I think I could do this. I'm poised for this. I've been working as an office manager. Someone's going to see me and ask me to do that fellowship. And that wasn't the case. I had to raise my hand and say, put me in. And so in 2009, I spent a year co-founding and planning a school that opened in 2010. In 2010, yeah.
And then from there, how long did you stay with the school before making your way back here?
So my whole career with that organization was about 7 years, from office manager all the way to being a school principal. And in 2013, I took a moment and I wrote a list of things that I wanted out of my next job. And I just kept writing. I probably had about over 100 things. And then I made myself narrow it down to 3 things. And I told myself I wanted to be outside of education. I wanted to be on a small team, and I wanted to be a startup company. I still had that kind of go-getter energy, that competitive spirit, and really fits with startups. And the first call I got was from my former boss when I was an office manager who worked in education. And he said, name your title, name your price. We'd love to have you. And I looked at my list and I was like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I have to say no.
Wow.
It doesn't meet my criteria. And soon after that, I was lucky enough to reconnect with a friend who had written an algorithm in healthcare to help patients and their families predict where they need to go for nursing home care. And it was a startup, it was a small team, and it was outside of education. So I went to work for a company called Aiden for another 6.5, 7 years.
That's awesome. So that was your friend came up with that algorithm? And then I guess how does that work? They have the algorithm, so then they create their own
software
business, or they create the software, then sell the software to hospitals.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Clearly, I'm not on that kind of algorithm level.
Our job. That was our job, and so I got to really step into the foray of consulting, and it's something I had always wanted to do, just be more of an analyst, more of just like on your toes. Let's look at the numbers, let's present them. And I really got that opportunity. I'm so glad my criteria really worked out. But I was training nurses on hospital floors on having new conversations with patients that weren't just about what nursing home would get back to you quicker, but let's wait for the quality one. And would you want your mother or father to go to a quality nursing home? And those were a lot of conversations that were difficult, because how do you change someone's job? You're kind of coming in saying you need to do it newly, and you're teaching adults, which secretly I really like. I love resistance to new things. Yeah. So it was a perfect position for me.
Well, it's like, once again, you fell back in education.
Right.
A form of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So during that time, you would travel back and forth to St. Louis for the holidays?
Yeah, on occasion. I wasn't hear that much. Yeah, I definitely was maybe I stopped coming maybe around holidays, but would find other times to come back. Yeah.
So then what pulled you back this way?
I think when I realized a couple things. One, I started hearing a lot on the news about federal regulations around cannabis in Illinois. And it was the loudest thing happening on the news at the time. It was still pre-pandemic, so it was like, oh, this is my Midwest news. Let me tune in to see what's Pritzker doing here. And I was tuning in specifically to news stories about those who were incarcerated who would have their records expunged. And while that was a great news story, I would then look at our reentry rates, our country's reentry rates, and be like, this is our job as citizens to ensure them a better reentry, and we failed. We're not equipped to have our brothers and sisters kind of back in their communities. And I was losing a lot of sleep over that. I didn't know what my role was going to be to help solve that problem, but I started to feel a sense of like reparations is owed to these people. We're saying now like, oops, sorry, the plant's now legal. Come on home again. And, what home, what community, what does that look like? So I didn't know, again, at the time what I was going to do with that, but I started an LLC called Reparations Project 40, and I kind of just tucked it away. I was like, this will be something later. I'll come back to it. And that supported my anger at the time.
Well, it's interesting because that's what put people in prison for, sometimes decades, their entire lives. Like, missing their family's birthdays, they're out of the picture, making it hard on the single parent or the grandparent, things like that. And then within the last 10 years, it's like, oh, you're this smart startup company and, humble beginnings. But then it's like, what about all these other people that were like, literally, we messed up their family's trajectory over something that is now legal. And so you saw that as an opportunity of like, okay, I don't know what it is at that time, but if and when, and hopefully we can make it all right, or as well as we can, you were working on putting something in place.
Yeah, I wanted to be a part of the solution. And I did apply to a couple fellowships during that time with some kind of idea about supporting men and women who are reentering as citizens. And it wasn't formulated enough at the time. It was still just an idea, and I was still living in New York. So what was I going to do from my Brooklyn bedside apartment on this huge, national issue? What also happened at that time, though, is I started getting more connected to the cannabis industry. So I would just notice things that were popping up in New York City, and medical cards were out by then. And I was dealing with a secret that I wasn't really talking about, which is that I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids, which is a very painful, kind of bloody diagnosis that women don't talk about because it has something to do with our body parts that publicly we're shamed for. So I was dealing with a level of pain that I refused to go on opioids for and really needed a solution. And someone said, why don't you try medical cannabis, just in a vape form? You don't have to take flower or anything. And I have to be honest, I had a huge bias on the plant. I was raised not with drugs in the home or anything. And so I was like, I don't know what this is. It makes you lazy, et cetera. And so I was really schooling myself when it came to, well, if you're so enraged about, those who are in jail for it, like you need to learn more about it. You can't now have this biased view. So long story short, I got my medical card. I saw a pharmacist to help with my pain. And after one puff of a vape, my pain that I'd been dealing with for 7 years completely dissipated. I was in the middle of Fifth Avenue in New York City in tears, like, oh my God, I cannot believe I've been enduring this for so long. I called the pharmacist back. I was like, thank you so much. This is great. And I run home to my partner who is a consumer. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I've been so biased, but can we learn this together? And I want to know more about it. So we started studying. And what we found was that a lot of people talked about cannabis, the THC psychoactive version, but we don't talk enough about CBD, the medicinal, and no one was talking about industrial hemp, which grows as tall as sugarcane, 6 or 7 feet tall. And in other nations, people are building homes and communities out of industrial hemp. You can build a home with hemp. And we saw this and noticed that, oh, wait, not just that, it can make plastic, biofuels, insulation, shoes. And when you talk to older baby boomers, they'll say, oh, yeah, I got a hemp shirt, that I like, these things. But none of this was coming up in the debate of making cannabis legal. We were kind of missing the climate part of it. And that's what I really grabbed onto.
Was the hemp illegal in some places?
Yeah. That was because it got mixed up with the psychoactive THC. Our government was not smart enough to say if it's this threshold, it's legal. If it's this threshold, it's illegal. And other governments as well. So it all got just, kind of illegal together, which is changing soon.
Because it was like, I'm probably going to sound so uneducated on this one, but isn't it like crack and cocaine almost the identical drug?
Right.
But in America, we see it, since this one's a smidgen off, this one's a severe thing, and this other one's, it's just a business slap on the hand.
Yeah, exactly. It's those distinctions that we don't take time to really note to say what is really harmful here. So we really got kind of bit by the climate bug when it came to hemp and cannabis and what it could do for our soils, what the roots could do if we became farmers. And I will say I kind of took a big risk and just bought a hemp license while I lived in New York. Mm-hmm. I, again, didn't know what I was going to do with it, but it was based in Illinois. And my last piece of that was I needed to find a plot to assign that license to. And as fate would have it, a family friend had 40 acres in southern Illinois. And it was when I heard the 40 acres, it rang true of that reparations that I had tucked away. And I was like, 40 acres, let's go, let's get there. So long story short, we packed up our boxes in April 2020. At the height of the pandemic, we moved to southern Illinois to grow CBD for hemp.
This was in 2020?
Yeah.
So you said April 2020. So that's right when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And you're like, that was your time. You got out of New York City. You moved to southern Illinois. Mm-hmm. Then what has that process been like? That
was really enlightening. First of all, nothing stopped in agriculture. Absolutely nothing. It ramped up, if not anything. We saw a bunch of vegetable farmers at the height of their careers, at the height of their harvest. We had everything we needed. And also what was very odd that people would ask us is we were dealing with no tensions of race in southern Illinois, being new Black farmers in the rural in the rural community. And so it was a really nice transition. It was all that I wanted to get out of the city and get back to the land. We fulfilled on that. Unfortunately, 6 months after we got there, by August 2020, the owner of the property changed their mind about selling us the property. We moved on a promise that it would be ours eventually, and that land deal fell through. Now, when you're in the farming community and you go to a farmer and you're looking for a pity party here, they're like, honey, that happens all the time. So we had to just quickly, stand back up, and we leased that property. And I came back to St. Louis, which was only about 90 minutes away, grounded myself at home. And I think I needed to be back home during that time. My family was going through a lot of transition. My grandmother, I got to be by her side in her last days, and things that I never thought I would experience because I had been in New York all that time. So the failure really did launch us forward.
So it was like just kind of a promise, a handshake, like, oh yeah, this is what we'll do. And then it came around to the time, the actual moment. Yeah. And then it was like, no, I'm starting to learn a little bit about that in the business world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, from there you came back up to St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then how did you get involved with the current property?
So a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I know you're looking for properties. I know someone who's just purchased on this lot that has a lot of historical relevance. Would you be interested in checking it out? Sure, connect me to the realtor. Happy to go out. And luckily, the realtor is really well connected. So she had me stacked. I was looking at 5 properties that day. And the first one happened to be an auction. So I went into the middle of Missouri, a town called Stover, Missouri. It's near Versailles, which is what the Missourians call it over there. And there was an auction in a barn, and you got this Black girl in the middle of the barn bidding on land. And it was a unique experience. I definitely drove the price up way more than I think the person who ended up with wanted to buy or get it for. But that didn't work out, and we went to see another place. when I got to this property that we now have, when I got there, I have to be honest, it wasn't flat farmland. I couldn't do what I was doing in Illinois. I got there, it was really rocky, hilly, a lot of woods. And so I found myself standing on a fallen electric pole looking out over this beautiful horizon, like, what am I going to do with this place if I purchase it? I can't even afford it also, but glad I'm here. And I told my partner, Osai, honestly, I think I could see myself doing a retreat here for women who want to heal from their pain of fibroids, or maybe those formerly incarcerated who want to come into nature. Like all these retreat nature-based ideas started coming to me. And I made a leap of faith and asked some friends for some support financially. And in April 2021, we closed on 244 acres of what's known as Missouri's first Black resort.
So it wasn't ready for you. How was that process of getting it ready as great as you could?
Yeah, so I think why I feel very called to this project, it feels like I was in New York, the phone rang, and I picked it up and was like, okay, got it. Not knowing what the message was, and the message was to return to the land, return to your home state of all the places. And why the infrastructure has really taken, I'll say, a toll on me, like building this land out, is because the independent, competitive girl that moved away from here now needs help. And I have to ask for support. And that had been my Achilles heel in New York for years. And so we are slowly but surely making our way, but really realizing that we need our community. We need to tap back into, hey girl, you went to elementary school here, call these people from Metro, let them know. Did you all know that Missouri has this wonderful gem, and we have 244 acres to share with our community? And so this year we are building a camping deck. I won a glamping tent online.
Nice.
And so we're going to build a camping deck. We've got an RV, we got electricity in, we got water in. We do have a cabin now in the community, and it's just going to be year by year. Right now, I am focused on getting people just back out to nature. If you want to just walk on a trail, smell the air, listen to the streams going. Those are things that I think I don't want to rush past just to put a bunch of buildings up or retreat spaces. Let's reconnect with the ground first.
How many people live in the community at the moment?
So the community is called Lake Placid, Missouri, not New York with the alligator, Lake Placid, Missouri. It was founded in 1934 by Dr. P.C. Turner, and he sold it to his friends and family. There are about 135 lots or so around the lake, and the people who live there varies from season to season. Some people stay full time, some people just visit seasonally. Some lots don't get checked on, some are vacant, and some are dilapidated. So we have a lot of different phases of development ahead as a community.
Now, for someone like me, if I have the interest in being involved, maybe like, hey, I love what you're doing. I didn't go to Metro, but okay. I trust you. You see what I did there? But it's like, I want to go down there and I want to help be part of it, maybe even glamp for a weekend. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. So our website is reparationsproject40.com. And we've just launched this year our Patreon community, which a lot of creators are already familiar with. But if you're not familiar with Patreon, it allows you to come into a curated community. It's almost like having a social media feed, but it's just you and your people. We do have a free tier, a $9 tier, and a $49 tier. And those different tiers give you different perks. So on our website, you can totally book a weekend, book the RV. That's probably the thing that most people are used to, a real toilet, a real shower. Mm-hmm. You can book camping. And in the Patreon community, you're getting a sense of future investment opportunities that we have when we're thinking about, well, how do we create the economics that the promise of reparations had for us? We have those conversations as a Patreon community. What do we want to see built out in this, what's possible here in nature? So that's why I invite everyone to join Patreon.
Now, what's the goal before the end of the year? How many more people do we need to get on board?
Thank you. I would love to see 100 people in there right now. We're at 20.
20,
We're
okay.
20 people, and I know each of those 20 people knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
It's St. Louis, yeah.
Exactly. And so if you're hearing my voice, come on in to Patreon. And if not, meet us on Wednesday, June 19th for our annual Juneteenth Jazz Brunch and Fundraiser.
Because
So this year we're unveiling a new project, and every year we unveil a project. The first year was 2022. We're still kind of coming out of the pandemic, so I did the gala virtually. 2023, we hosted it in Kansas City, closer to the Lake Placid community at the American Jazz Museum over there. Have you been over there? 18th and Vine?
I haven't.
Oh my God, Braden, go
need to go?
over there. Yes, Kansas City, 18th and Vine. It has just rich historical stories, just the birth of jazz is there. And so we had a beautiful gala there. And this year we'll be at the Whittemore House on the WashU campus, Wednesday, June 19th. And so I can't tell you what the project we're unveiling yet is, but know that our first project was a hemp farm that I mentioned earlier. So every year there is a different project that meets the criteria of reparations that we launch.
Now that's the same website if people want to buy tickets to that event?
Yeah. Go ahead and go same place, reparationsproject40.com, and you'll get a link that kicks you out to get you a ticket for Juneteenth.
Now, what does the future look like for you? Let's just say hopes, dreams, things that you're willing to share, because sometimes we can't give away all the secret sauce. But what are some of those hopes and dreams? And then also, how can St. Louis help? I know you mentioned like Patreon, but maybe it's like just keep telling people.
Yeah. So hopes and dreams. Let's revitalize Missouri's first Black resort. There's a community there already. Whatever they want to do, I'm here to support that. We have 244 acres to figure out as well. So we're bringing community to join in with a current group that's there. I would love to see nature-based rehab options. I'd love to see mental health weekend options. Just come take a break for a weekend. Come read a book for 48 hours. Leave your tech at home. Having a place to stay where people can say, you know what, 3 hours, let me just get out of here. I'll be right back. It's so accessible. The other thing I do see is let's take care of our elders. Where are our parents going to go when they need long-term care? Now you can kind of hear that healthcare career coming through me here, but honestly, Dr. P.C. Turner, the founder of Lake Placid, was a medical doctor. And one thing he really wanted was for people to heal and rest in nature. And so let's not forget that part of the legacy. Let's have community health centers have maybe branches out there. Let's have home health agencies do day tours and field trips. All these home health buses driving around, they can bring their folks out for a day and turn back around. So really just nature-based health and rehab is how I see it. I want everything to be built with hemp. That's really a big dream. I want students and, kind of our workforce to understand that hemp is a building material. So we will be hosting workshops, building small things with hemp out there, because eventually we want to meet the scale of Europe, Canada, and Asia, where they're building 2-3-story buildings out of hemp. So we'll need more community there for sure. And we need to educate more, because a lot of people are like, can I smoke the house? So we gotta teach.
Yeah, people, they get stuck in their old ways, but it's all about education, learning about it, seeing it for themselves.
That's right. And so I'll say how Missourians can help. And I really do see it as Missourians from Kansas City to St. Louis. But I really, in my heart of hearts, think that it was a disservice that I was a St. Louis public school student and I didn't know about Missouri's first Black resort. And it's already written up in the book. The State Historical Society of Missouri, Dr. Gary Kramer, has a whole book, Race and Meaning, the African American Experience of Missouri. And chapter 12 is all about Lake Placid. Let's be teaching that chapter and in the whole book, really, but let's teach our families and our communities about this. So that's my biggest ask for everyone. Just keep talking about it. Go share it on the mountain.
Yeah. Y'all watching? You're listening? No, I mean, even for myself, I need to, but before you reached out to me, I didn't know about it. And now I do. And now I'm curious. And then also I know like where you're at, where you hope to be. So it'll be fun to like just watch that throughout our lifetimes, because it's history.
Yeah.
So you'll be in the history books one day. And
wow. Thanks. You hear that? I'll be in the history books one day.
So before I let you go, Foodie Friday, And so what are 3 or 4 of your favorite spots to eat in St. Louis?
Okay, so the very first thing that comes to mind, I think it's because I'm on your platform here, is that when you interviewed Bow Wow at the Black and White Gala, he said my cousin's restaurant name wrong. And I'm bringing this back. I'm bringing this back because we got to put some respect on my family's name. But Vale's Brothers, Chicken and Fish. They have 3 locations now, not just on Del Mar, not just on Manchester, but they're out in St. Peter's as well. So got to go to Vale Brothers. Got to support Eric, Wilbert, Aisha, and the family over there.
You hear that, Bow Wow? I don't think he's listening, but we'll tag him. We're going to put that old clip back up. Bam, bam. You hear that?
Vale's Brothers.
He said he comes to St. Louis. He's friends with Tatum. So
right.
We'll see.
Exactly. So that's 1 for sure. 2, I would say Sweet Art on 38th. Just gotta go there. I'm not even a sweets person, and she gets me every time. I'll just get whatever is there. So really, really love Sweet Art. Mm-hmm. And I got to bring an homage back from New York City. So Sweet Green, it's a salad company kind of franchise, and yeah, I guess I got hooked. So Sweet Green, Sweet Art, and Vale's Brothers would be my top 3.
That's a good lineup. I've been meaning to, hit the New York crowd, so that's perfect.
Okay.
Now, let's say you go to one of those places, dinner guests, 3 people, dead, or alive. It could be family members, friends, what society calls celebrities, mentors, things like that. Who would join you?
That's a great question. I'm just coming off of a conference in LA, and I really thought I was going to meet this woman, and I didn't. It didn't happen. But Sheila Johnson, co-founder of BET, sold it with her husband to Viacom. They parted ways, and now she's a hotelier, and she has one of the largest, most luxurious Black resort called Salamander Resorts, and Black owned really, because she's the owner, and it's in Middlesburg, Virginia. Sits on about 340 acres, and I'm sitting on 244 acres. Sheila Johnson, let's have dinner together.
I'm seeing it, the parallels.
You seeing it? So really big inspiration, and just being a young entrepreneur, a mentor for sure. So gotta have Sheila Johnson. Next, I would say I think let's bring it home. So if I'm thinking of St. Louis, let's go alive first. So I'd say David Stewart, Worldwide Technology. How did you billionaire? The racetrack? It's mind boggling. It's very inspiring to see how a company and a really healthy work culture. And I'm really big on teams and how we function together. So yeah, I'd have a lot of questions for David Stewart.
I need to get him on the podcast.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And then I'd say local, but deceased, Madam CJ Walker. She had a hair brand company. She actually worked with Anna Breedlove, who is with I can't think of it, but here in St. Louis, we have the May Day Parade and Annie Malone. Thank you.
Yeah,
she was
Annie
the founder
Malone,
of Annie Malone. And so, yeah, Annie Malone and Anna Breedlove, but Madam CJ Walker, she used to carry around her projector and projector screen everywhere she went because she'd be ready for a presentation on her hair brand in a moment. And that's kind of how I feel with the Reparations Project 40. I'm like, there's a listener here. Hey, did you know in 1934, 2 Black men founded this resort? So it's just so inspiring to think in the 40s she was doing this on trains between different cities, and she would have a network of women meet her at the train station in different cities to pass off her product so that they can keep selling. What?
Entrepreneurship right there.
Yes, it's honestly just these are images I wake up to every day to keep my grind going.
Well, it's like different, generations, but still kind of like it's entrepreneurship, right? She was always ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Come on.
And so it's like, maybe you just walk around with like a big briefcase like the one over there. Uh-huh. And you're always...
Just latch it open.
Yeah. Or was it Iron Man? You just put your hand up and then the whole screen.
Exactly. I'm ready for that. I could use that.
Now, before I let you go, well, delete. Now, one last question. Words of wisdom, whether it's someone that aspires to do what you've done, what you're doing, or it could be someone listening that's going through a tough time.
When I think about the wisdom that I lean on, whether it be a tough time or to follow my journey, I do think about asking for support. That is the one action you can take every day that as a woman, kind of, also Black woman, but moving back to St. Louis and not really knowing a lot of people. I'm connected to a lot of people, but it's been 20 years. So do I really know you? Let's not pick up right as we left in high school. We have to reconnect. And so I think even getting out of any funk or even getting out of any stall that you have, just raising your hand and asking for support really dissolves the stories we tell ourselves about, what we can or can't do. And so, I do think about closing on the 244 acres at Missouri's first Black resort. And what that took was 10 asks a day, really. It was really that mode. And I give that advice to myself and to anyone listening.
So that's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations. It's going to be, really cool and really fun to watch your journey. And I'm happy to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you for reaching out. And yeah, this is going to be exciting.
Thank you. Can't wait to host everyone there, including you, Braden.
Yes. And now how can people follow you?
So you can follow us at Reparations Project 40 on Instagram and Facebook. And our hemp company, Salem Hemp Kings, is Salem Hemp Kings on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time.